Vi finder den arrangeret. Hvad?
I forhold til at spille spillet, skal vi lade sådan folk til at spille imellem?
Ja, det kan vi gøre. Jeg kan starte med, at jeg bare starter.
Ja, lige præcis. Jeg tænker, at vi skal bare køre sådan meget uformelt med, at folk spørger bare.
Ja, folk spørger bare, hvis der er. Fordi det er på stream, så bliver vi nødt til at køre det på engelsk. Så ja.
Men lad os bare starte, når Daniel lige kommer.
Ja, han kommer op. Vi vil se, om
har du hul igennem det hele?
Det tror jeg. Vi må have kritik på telefonen. Jeg sidder med streamet. Så hvordan går det her? Ja, der var noget klar.
Ja, så kan vi skal starte nu her.
Præcis. Jeg tænker, hvis vi sådan starter nu her, og så kan jeg gå ned en gang imellem. Og se om det skulle være flere.
Ja, lad os få det. Vi har skrevet klart.
Ja. Ja. Skal jeg råbe folk op, eller? Ja. Gør det. Godt. Der er 2 mennesker, der kigger med. Og det er det eneste, der står deroppe på stedet. Er det Mads, den ene? We will be there with the stream. Jeg sender en link til Mads. Han vil gerne se det på streaming i hvert fald.
Ja. Frederik Max gør også, han kigger med på Jylland.
Nå ja, på det mørke Jylland, ja. Hvis du råber folk op, så må det være.
Okay, everybody. Yeah. Please take a seat, and then we will begin shortly.
Okay, so we will just say welcome to Lydens. It's a kind of new thing that we're trying out where we will have this audio playthrough. We did one last month or something where we were just 5 people playing Tetris. So it's really fun to see how it's growing. So more people come here. But I think it's because that now on this time we have a super talented sound designer, Bjørn, here, which is really awesome that he want to talk about how he made sound design for DARQ here. So we're looking forward to that.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that we're gonna hold it like kind of informal, so that if you have any questions during gameplay or in commentary, then just please shout it out.
Yeah.
Just be aware that Bjørn is live streaming.
We're streaming
Yeah.
to everybody, so it's
to both.
That's why we will keep it in English, even though it will I guess most people are Danish, but that's why, so that we can have as many viewers as possible, hopefully. See how it goes.
You're gonna do a small presentation
Yeah.
about what you did, and then we'll play the game.
Yeah, and then we'll go through a couple of we have the projects that we used with us. We can go through some of the audio files, and I can show you some of the processing and so on. But there's one problem for the streamers, and that is that Cubase doesn't work over the stream.
Oh.
So whenever we cut off the stream, that's the reason. But then we can go through Cubase together, which is tiny automated projects here and there. Yeah. So, and I think the plan is to just start talking a little bit about the game and so on, and then we will play the game together. I'll start by playing and then show something off, and then hopefully someone else will take over, and then we'll see thousands of graphical bugs, because there's no audio bugs whatsoever, just to see how people will respond to it. But also along the way, then we can just pause it and talk about what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
really
it.
fun.
Yes.
Yeah, let's give
Where do we turn off the light, by the way?
We can definitely turn off.
Can
the lights.
we? Oh, there we go.
Big hand for Bjørn.
Yes. Yeah, I've been to this done. All right. So, hello, my name is Bjørn. I am 38 years old. I live in Copenhagen. I work for several companies right now, and I create sound for games, which I have for many years. But it's been sort of like I don't know if you follow my YouTube channel or whatever, but it's been kind of overloaded for the past 5 years, where I've been lucky enough to work on way too many projects, and I don't really sleep lately. But that's beside the point. I think it's about almost 3 years ago. I see there's a guy on this video game designers forum who writes an email and says something about the trailer that he has seen for a game, and he thinks it sounds really cool. And I check out the trailer, and I'm like, okay, so it does actually sound really cool. And I would like to maybe work on this game. It looks really cool, but probably they have a really cool sound designer because the trailer was cool. Eventually, I pulled myself together and sent the guy an email, just to, standard info at something, and that you've 9 out of 1 billion times never get a response. And I got an email back saying like, yeah, we don't really need any sound. Like, maybe we will get back to you and so on. And funny enough, I see the guy, he checks out my LinkedIn profile, and then immediately after I get a response like, do you work on Cyberpunk? So maybe we can sort of work something out. Won't you be busy? And I was like, yeah, maybe I'm busy, but for this game, I am not busy. Like, I really want to work on this. And later he actually revealed to me that my email came on the day where he meant to sign with someone else. So if I had written him the day after or whatever, would never have gotten the job. That's long story short. We started communicating back and forth, what do we want, which made me fall quite in love with the project, because the guy who made the game has never made a game before. He has never programmed, he has never drawn art or anything like that. He's a Hollywood composer that does Hollywood movies. And he never had a job in video games before. So he wanted to make video games. And to begin with, I think he eventually decided, as everybody should, that if you want to work in video games, why not make your own game? Because that's the best way of getting experience. Then he started working on this, sort of like pulled off. Like I still find it pretty amazing that 5 years ago he looked up a YouTube tutorial on how to do C# scripting in Unity, and then after that has animated and drawn and coded everything himself, which is cool. Somebody's coming. Hello. Welcome. Anyway, so he made this nice game, and the thing is that because he's not a, let's say, experienced game developer, he is now, but then there's lots of things that has been not weird, not unprofessional or anything like that, but it's just stuff that he didn't take into account. Like when you're more than one person on a project, you need version control, which we, by the way, didn't have. So sending stuff back and forth was me getting the project, doing my stuff, sending it back to him, and he would send it back to me, and so on. It's not tedious and it's not a problem. It's just when you start to have fmod projects by the size of 2-3 gigs, then it takes quite a while to send it back and forth all the time. And also sometimes it created some, not issues, but sometimes he would write me back and say, why isn't this sound working as intended? And then I would quickly make a small video and put in where I thought the sound should be and be like, it's supposed to sound like this. And he'd be, oh, I put it in the wrong order, or maybe I named the files wrong or whatever. Which of course would have been different if I had had access to the project and so on myself, but we didn't. So the whole project is made like literally over email, and we transfer back and forth forever and ever. We did have a Google Drive and a Dropbox at one point, but that's it. That made it really, really special because that also made it possible for me to not play the game. Like sometimes I wouldn't even have a level. I would have concept art of an elevator, sound design this. Okay. So I had my my standard template in Cubase and Wavelab where I would make sure that I always had the same processing, but then literally just throw anything at it and then something would come out on the other end. Sounds really easy, but that's literally how it was. We started out by talking about what kind of game do we want, and since it's his first game and his reason was to get into video game development, he said that to him it was kind of a prestige project. So his only requirement was that we at least try to win him awards. And I was like, yes, like, I don't mind, because usually it's some developer wants something and you deliver. And this guy was only like, just do whatever the fuck you please. And just make sure it sounds good and great and weird and crazy and stuff. So the first level that we did is called the opera level. It's you play it a little later. It's changed a little bit while we were developing it, but that was actually the level that we decided to design in the very beginning, where we were talking about how do we actually want the game to sound. And it's my daughter's little guitar, and we throw it around at home in the living room and so on. And that's literally how that level is structured. I like to work from a design perspective that it's rather chaotic and I'm super unstructured, but I normally like to live off happy accidents with sounds. So I generally create processing chains or other things, and then I just throw stuff at it, like whatever sound I put into my system is no longer the sound that I necessarily want. It's merely my carrier signal. So I gather a bunch of samples and I create some cool effect chain for one sound, but then I take a billion sounds and throw through the same processing. And then I have to listen through that library, and eventually there's like tiny chunks that I can cut out and then use because it's all over processed. Most of it is completely unusable because it's distorting and so on. But eventually I usually have an idea of what I'm looking for, but then I create a folder that I call this whatever elevator drop down Lego material. And then whenever I have generated all this material, I go through it and I cut it out, and then I name them and I just drop them all in this Lego folder, which I will eventually import all of into my Cubase project. And then it's like, oh, this and that, then put everything together. It's like I I fill a box of Legos and then I pour it all out and then I build something off whatever I have. Mainly out of weird accidental files and so on. We'll get to some of the processing. But one thing that we wanted was to, I don't know, how many have actually played the game? 1, 2? Okay. You play at my party.
Yes.
We had a release party at my place. So one thing that we wanted was that should be very atmospheric and dark, funny enough. Whenever you're walking around, black and white, there's lots of ambience going on. All that ambience is made out of real-time sounds, which sticks to the lore of what's going on in the background of the story. So I went to Herlev Hospital at 3 a.m. to record stuff, and they definitely don't look at you weird when you stand in the hallway with a microphone at 3 a.m. And went to a school up in Birkerød that's closed so that you can record shit in the basement and so on. We totally did not break into that school. True story. And what we wanted was to make sure that it was atmospheric and so on. So when you're not touching the controller, the player can stand still. Maybe there are 3D sounds placed around the scene, but it's very subtle. And whenever you touch or interact with something, it is literally maxed out, like compression limiter, like all bits used, always. So it's really loud. The dynamics are really crazy. Some people in the Steam reviews like that, others don't. One guy was complaining that he couldn't turn down the sound, which we then showed him in a GIF. Like, you go to the menu, you turn it down. He didn't like it, but that's beside the point. We wanted it to be extremely loud. And I like loud and pumpy and effectful, over-processed stuff. I used to do a lot of techno, maybe it's from there, but the processing of how to produce such a sound is exactly the same as if I was to be composing an entire track. To me, it's if I compose a 30 millisecond sound or a 1 second sound, to me the processing chain and the way my sequencing structure looks like, it's exactly the same as if I was composing a 1 hour track or 5 minute track or whatever. Thus, it literally looks the same, which is mainly really weird and long effect chains and lots of automation. In DARQ, I tried to be a little more structured, so only have those chaotic projects when I was processing something, and then create the so-called Lego blocks I would have, which means that the sound that eventually becomes something are literally just already processed sounds. So then it's almost no processing on any of them, just put together. And very strict, very, very, very strict high pass control so that we don't have any DC and so on, because when you use 20 unlicensed old 32-bit glitch plugins, you have no idea what kind of processing comes out of it. But we should try out the first level. Daniel, Lightmaster. Is just these two?
This one, yeah.
All right. We don't even know if it actually. So the fun thing about when you don't have access to the editor, you only have access to the, in this case, the Fmod project, is that there's lots of things that I might take for granted on some projects where I can do my own implementation. But in this case, there was nothing. So it's all very hard-coded and simple solutions in many ways. So all these footsteps here, they are generated per material, but we have a version for sneaking, walking, running, and sprinting, and then per material, but then also per reverb type. So that's already 400 sounds or something. It's a one giant batch processing of how to do all those, but that's literally how it is. So instead of playing one asset at a time, we did actually randomize it, so it may play footstep number 1, but then reverb version of number 5, and so on. And they're cut up so that they're always super randomized. Might not sound super randomized, but they are never identical. Anyway, this is the apartment that you start in, and whenever you activate the bed, the next level starts. And this is where we check if the speakers can handle it. So. The whole point of the game is that you can walk around and then rotate the world. And activate any object you find, basically. But like I said, if you stand still, there is an ambient sound. It's just a drone, probably like 20 hertz, just very subtle. We run through it, then stuff starts to happen. So we made this pickup thing, mechanic. It plays a certain pickup sound, and then a unique layer for every item that you pick up. So a lot of my time was on trying to find out how to duct tape sound, or snails, or stuff that you pick up. Like, how do we want it to be? So. Huh? No. Yeah, the beeping in the background is Herlev Hospital. I don't know. Hopefully somebody wasn't dying out of that defibrillator noise you hear, but that is Herlev Hospital, yeah. So the weird thing is that when I was working on this, I was working at CD Projekt Red. So a lot of the sound that was created is made like after hours at the CD Projekt Red office where I didn't have my own content. So normally I would sit and work out of libraries and just put stuff together and so on, which was of course really cool. The libraries that I own myself, sure, I could use that, but what about the libraries that I don't own? It's maybe technically I could, but I didn't really want to. So sometimes I would go home to my own studio and then try to recreate the library sound that I had used. Just a combination of for sport, but also just because that would make it, I don't know, legally more interesting. Oh, here we go. And it can get rather, these levels can get rather confusing whenever you're around a level like this. And a lot of these sounds are recorded in my basement. We wanted them as loud as possible, so they're all recorded super low, actually, oddly enough, so that we could overprocess them and make them extremely loud. And here goes. Ah, fuck. Here we go. If I can remember the controls. In the background there's a heartbeat, if you listen very closely. That is my daughter, like 5 minutes before she's born. It's really weird when you stand at a hospital ward, like 2 minutes before a C-section, you go like, can I record this? Doctors, they look at you like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, come on! No, it's not like that, but it's still really weird. Come on, pig. So now we have an emblem that we can then use. The whole point of most of these puzzles is that you can rotate the world, of course, but also most of them are based around physics, weird physics. stuff happens like this. Right, so this here is quite simple, as in there's a looping sound that basically just plays all the time, and then the volume is just increased according to if the piston is moving, which you'll see. Would be a shame if I missed my own puzzles, right? Okay, I didn't do the puzzles. And now we have the 3 gears, and now we can complete the level, which means that someone will. Oh fuck! Yeah, just to let you know, all breathing and voices are me, or my daughter, making weird noises. And we can go through the processing chain whenever we get to the game and talk about that. The whole point of the processing chain is that you can always store a processing chain and save it. So whenever I want to go back and create a sound that is similar to something else, you can keep the processing chain and then basically feed it whatever, and it will sound like it ish. The guy who made the game, I don't know what he has against lamps, but they're all over the place. Yeah, so that's level 1. We're back at the apartment. Who wants to play? Yeah, there you go. It's, what's it called? X is the main button for controlling whatever you want. Anyway, so now I have hands free, so we can talk some more. You can go to the bed and activate it to go to the next level. Originally, we wanted custom transition sounds for this that would resemble the level that you would go into, but it just didn't really work out. Like, I made all these tiny details, and the developer Vlad was like, "This isn't working." Okay, so we just stuck with one transition sound, which is, of course, this is the New York City subway. It's recorded with a Sony D100. We were talking about it before the meeting, before all this, about which recorder was cool, and the Sony D100 has excellent noise ratio, and it records really cool stuff. So in, yeah, maybe. Anyway, the New York City subway, and it's not only doctors who look at you weird when you record stuff. I was at that time girlfriend shit while we're walking around on a romantic trip now. Oh, and that's A. If you want to rotate the world. If he touches the wall, you can rotate. And this here, the subway level, this is one of the small levels that Vlad, the developer, would send to me like 10 tell me, oh, we have this small level, also needs sound. It's nothing in particular, and by far that's my favorite level. Mainly because of the train. What? Yeah, he thought it was nothing in particular. It's like a small level, just intermediate thing between two things. And I was like, dude, this is the coolest place. like we can make noisy shit out of the trains. We can make stuff rotate. We can make it really cool. We agreed on that. But it's I guess when you maybe it's significant. So we're talking about why is this level cool? Because I think it's really cool. But okay, he's been working for like 6 years alone. I guess he's sort of rotate the world. More. Around it. No. Rotate it again. So you have the wall and walk up the wall. And rotate the world back again. While you're there. And then walk over there. Like something like that. Try one of the combinations. But that's, I have very deep respect for the guy who made the game because it's like I think the story is that he had a lucid dream at one point, and then he decided to make the game. I guess it's kind of cool. But also, he's been working on it for so long. We quite often had to go through some of the levels together and discuss why something was cool, because sometimes I had a hard time figuring out the type of world that he wanted, but also what like with this level, to him this was a small level, not insignificant but small, and something that he had been working on for a long time. It's just something in between, and I had to honestly tell him that I think this level is yet small, probably the smallest level, really cool, and the train and so on is really cool. Not at all. I'm not involved in the game design at all. Some of it's over, but not like. No, I don't have anything to say when it comes to game design. He received my compliments for certain things, but not the whole. Let's say I didn't have anything to say about it. Yeah, because that's how stuff burns, you know, naturally. There you go. It's totally natural and logic. But I think a lot of it is about the surrealism, about the puzzles. We tried to reflect that in some of the sounds. I don't know if you heard yet, but they're quite overprocessed and they're quite loud. But that's the whole point, that the world is supernatural in every way that we can find. That's just the sound of an actual watch in a library that's pitched up and down. And that is Pennsylvania Station when a train stops. It's way cool. Yes, and then no, but you go back to the apartment and then start over. Somebody else wants to try the next level? You played it before, so not you. Yeah, there's nothing new in the apartment as such. A couple of details change, but there's no gameplay in the actual apartment. I know that there's been several people involved, but it's one person. He's like probably 90% of everything. which I find pretty cool. I remember when I sent him an email, he wrote me back in the beginning, like, yeah, no, I'm alone on this. Like, you're not alone on this. This can't be true, because this is really weird. Especially if you have no game design experience and so on. Like, I guess there's a lot of stuff to read up on. This is that hand grabbing that thing is probably the first sound we designed for a level. In the that was way faster than I did it in my own YouTube channel. So the breathing sounds, that's for all of these monsters, it's just me breathing, but it's combined with lots of other sounds, usually the same sound of me breathing, then pitched down and played on top of itself. I don't know, 20 seconds of reverb and a couple of other things. And then processed through a lot of impulse response filters. Normally I work a lot with impulse response filters, but not in the traditional way. I usually design a sound that I then use as the filter and then throw stuff at it. Sometimes with more than one filter at a time, which means that eventually my computer chokes so much, so I'm literally working blindly in my editor and then just export everything. And then sometimes take an entire library of something weird and just batch process it through. It takes a couple of hours. And then I have a library full of material where something cool might come out of it. You never know. You can try to die if you want to on purpose. It's just me. He made the music for the Hitman movie. That's actually a funny story, because to begin with, it was meant to be full of music. Completely composed classical music on top. And then with the sound design. And the further into the process we came, the more he told me that I took the music out. I like the sound of it. I took the music out. And unfortunately, towards the end of production, when he was supposed to compose the music and put it in there, he had there was some personal stuff going on that prevented him from actually composing the music for the game. So now there's only music for the let's say the more shocky events, and then for the credits. That's the only music there is. Which it works pretty well, but to begin with, the plan was to have music all over the place. No, because I was told extremely late in the process that there would be no music. But I think it works pretty well, but that's also... I don't really see how it would work with the music on now that I play it now, because why? Like super classical music on top of this super compressed stuff. It's a little, I don't know if it would have worked. Depends on the composition. But we never got that far, so. And this is one of the sounds that you can you can break it. Like if you move it up and down real fast, you can hear that there's a click sound and a start and stop loop, but you're obviously not supposed to break the logic. Obviously. There was an overall plan, and when I signed up with the project, it was several years ahead, and then it changed a little bit back and forth when to release the project, but It was it. What? The stereo is reversed. Oh, sorry. It's through HDMI, so I don't know. Probably. But the thing is that as much as he had not made games before and so on, it's never been unprofessionally approached or anything like that. But there has of course been situations where I was in with my AAA experience thinking like, okay, this would have been approached differently, or we need a tool for this and that and so on. But that's with full respect to a developer who's never made a game before, I think it's still pretty well done. And I think the very low-key process of sending the project back and forth works better than if you don't know how version control works and so on. That would take probably quite a long time to figure out on your own as well. So there was an end date in mind, but we all agreed that it was very slow and very like straightforward, pretty rock and rolly. So what are you doing, Daniel? Me? Okay. Am I loud? Sorry. Oh. How many are streaming? Do you know? You can rotate it all the way around. So you can also see the other side of it. One more. Neatly designed block towards where you can't go. Really? Okay. Well, that's pretty not bad. That's pretty cool. Is there no sound on that surface? Oh, there is one. What do you have in your inventory? Nothing. Oh wait. Oh wait. If you rotate back, one more. There, and then go right. And do the elevator thing all the way to the top, and then rotate back so you can see the elevator. Live hints, yes. Now you just have to find the car. I think this is the car sound. This is the car door. It's my Kia. But it's I think it's the last sound that we put into the game. That was like a bug that we fixed. Probably. Make up your mind. No. But you started with the lock. There's something else. Even further? Now louder? What? Now loud?
Yeah.
Okay. All the rain stuff, by the way, that's one giant 2D layer that's playing all the time. And then almost every 3D item that's located in the foreground or in the background. Almost every item that has a metallic surface or ground surface has this this weird extra layer of very close up. Just imagine me in my apartment saying weird stuff. And just to make it clear, when I made a YouTube video about this level myself, I also died several times, and it was really annoying. Skal ikke bare på det stream. Kom med. The what? Once it sees you, you can't escape. No. It's a one-time mechanic thing. Else we could change it into open world, shoot 'em, Fallout thing. You escape the monster, I guess. But no. Just all of them. It works okay, but I don't remember how we necessarily decided on how to do it like that. We used the internal reverb plugin in Fmod first, and the best result we could get was super metallic and kind of bad. So eventually I just made a batch process, which in my Wavelab editor could say all sounds with. I made a preset of the small room. I just had everything run through it. A medium room and large room, which of course triples the amount of assets, but that also made it possible to, if you have a 100% wet reverb sound, you can randomize between them. So the randomized footstep with the randomized reverb was actually quite interesting result, especially because if the footsteps are kind of similar. It worked pretty well. No, I think it only plays. It's only allowed to play 2 at a time of the reverbs, and then kills the oldest one. I think it kills the latest. Why is it called kill newest or oldest? But I think here it's called Fmod. It's keep latest, keep new. I don't remember the name for it. Which is actually the biggest problem when you switch from different types of middleware, is the terminology they use. People are like, keep latest, keep newest, kill oldest, kill whatever, virtual voice, secret voice, whatever they call it. It's really weird. Not weird, but it's very different. Yeah, nothing happens. Oh. Nice thinking. That's not their thing, but I never thought of that. There's a different elevator there. But if you notice right there, there's a car. So if you rotate the world 180 degrees. It's not exactly like he's giving away hints as to how to complete stuff, which I find very nice. But also in some games it would frustrate me insanely that there wasn't more help than this. But I also kind of appreciate the let's try and make it a little difficult for people that like you're forced to actually think for a second. And the electric noises, like my microwave. Huh? It's an old crank. It's just, I think I had it laying around from something. Of course. That's the other elevator. Hey. Hey, nice work. This is probably the biggest level of them all. Back at the apartment. Next level? Who wants to play? Mess, you look like you want to. There are some graphical elements that change, like I think the clock in the background, the way it behaves changes, and there's some small graphical things that change, but it's not much. It was initially meant to be much more, and the transition change whenever you go back and forth. Graphical elements in terms of there's some more electrical sparks and so on that happen, but it's not much. We wanted first to emphasize that, but then also try to make the transition give away what was in the next level, but then we also agreed maybe not give away anything about what's in the next level. And this is a very old recording that I made many years ago for a game at DARQ called Razul out at Filmskolen. And the funny story is that we needed some rocks, so it's rocks on the front porch of Filmskolen that's just being moved around, and it's recorded with this weird recorder that I had with a shotgun microphone where to dampen it so that there was no wind. That it didn't have what's it called, windshield or anything like that. So I just had a sock over it. And people who walk by you or by you totally don't look at you strange when you're pointing a sock at rocks, like in the middle of the street. This level used to be very different from what the end product actually is, but it's cool. And it's much more minimalistic now. To begin with, there was all sorts of weird things on the stage, things would move. Yeah, and this year, this is one of the first really big puzzles that we made, where we actually agreed on that maybe we had something cool going on in terms of how we wanted it to sound. So I think this was one of the first tweets that we made about this. This is how we want the end product to be. Who's playing what? A dude is playing Counter-Strike. Oh. There you go. You should go somewhere else first. Else we can take forever on solving that puzzle. It's the same mechanic. Just a loop that just turns up and down according to the speed of the light bulb. All the electrical sounds, they're really difficult to do. Mainly they're made out of electrical library stuff that I found, but then also I have my old microwave, super not healthy, had some interference leaking out from it. So I had this tube valve microphone that if you placed it close to the microwave, it would record all sorts of whenever you turned it on. As you do. Yes. Don't go there. Don't go there without a specific item. Just telling. There you go. Hey, that's nice. It's an 808 kick drum with 2 years of reverberation on it. Oh, almost. It's very hardcore reverb, very long. Of course, with the fade out so that I can control it. But the reverb is bigger and longer than it's supposed to be, and then cut off at some point. Just to create that. Actually, that's one of the sounds that I guess the one that bothers me the most. Because it's not the same. There's a couple of variations, but you hear it far too often for me to think that it's cool to have that sound being so repetitive. Make variations, I suppose, or maybe if I had the time, we would talk to the developer and try and figure out, is there some way that we can make the rotation different per level or something like that? Someone else? Yeah. Oh, there's nothing else there. Nothing you can do. You can walk around and look at the nice scenery, but that's it. Yeah. Listen to the stove and the clock that rotates and so on. That's about it. Yes, there is a chapter select and all sorts of things. There's also, I don't think we have any Easter eggs, but there's hidden content on all the levels with collectibles and stuff that you can find. So. No, it's well, sort of. But there's like these pages that you can find. It's just there's just one per level. If you find all 5 or 6, I don't remember. Then you get an achievement, which of course is what all gaming is all about. We'll get to that, but all these, like all the boxes on the floor and the suitcases and so that are strolling back and forth. It's one thing that I have on the wavelength we can look at afterwards. But those are all tiny, tiny sounds of backpacks at my apartment, and I didn't have a recorder, so it's just my phone placed on the floor and then just moving stuff about. Because I didn't have anything, and we needed content right away. Totally valid choice of recorder if what you need doesn't have to be like very hi-fi or stereo or something like that. If you just need very tiny, subtle sounds, then that's what you gotta do. It's not necessarily the most professional approach, but in the end, if it works and sounds good, then why not? Yeah, but it's I guess if you're my age, then it makes complete sense, because then you played through all the LucasArts, Monkey Island, and Sam and Max and so on, and there everything was complete legit, like rubber chicken with dildo, yay, wait, there you go. Use hand on cat and pull something out of its belly, like woo, and throw away the cat. Totally legit. Yes. Just so that you don't spend too much time on that. That's from the very beginning. The safe on the floor that you didn't open, just in case you don't want to run all the way back in 5 minutes and come back. It's just else you could have been looking for it for quite a while. But a lot of these, the rotating world sounds and all the breaking of wood and so on, if you, I don't know if you have, and you totally should. On my YouTube channel we have this video where we destroy a piano. That's basically almost all of those used to create the rotating and wood stressy sounds and so on. There's also something with the piano later that we will get to. Piano I was talking about. cable you're looking for is up there. But you have to go pick up some dynamite before you do that, so don't do it again. Else you'll just be wasting your time, just like with the electrical tape. But you can go over with the piano. No, just go back. You interacted with the platform before, where you couldn't place anything? But now you can. And rotate the world. Yeah. Yes, and my colleagues were staring at me very weirdly that day. I think the original recording is actually where I didn't notice my colleague was walking into the room and he was looking at me like, what the f***? The what? When it attacks? It's a knife with reversed reverberation on. It's super overprocessed with compression, EQ, compressor, EQ, like trying to get the best out of some frequency. The breathing of the monster changes depending on the alert state of the monster. It's not, since it's stationary, it's not super useful, but it's still something that we link to it. So there's like 3-4 stages of breathing, which is calm, alerted, about to attack, and then whenever it attacks. And don't run too soon. It's a... you can run now. Because else the puzzle ends when the electricity goes there. And I remember the first couple of times, but even during game dev, when I was trying it out, like, I forgot the dynamite. If you go down there. Yes. It's just that you get on the other side of the ceiling. No, back and run, left, no, back, left. Oh! No pressure, yeah. What? The what? That? Oh, it's a time stretched, what you call it, a match. Stretched forever and forever. What? It's generally just a regular set of matches. I don't know, but in my head it makes quite a lot of sense that is the sound of, you know, from a set of matches. Way to go! No, that's not it. Oh, there it is, yeah. No, you should be able to do it from there. It's still me, yeah. But the camera rotates all the way around, so you can see it once in a while. Yeah, back in the day with walkthroughs and shit. No, we actually have people who run through that on first try before the camera even gets back the first time because they memorize the puzzle. No. There you go! Hey! All that for a lighter. I think so, but I'm actually not sure of the lore. If there is a reason for the trout movement. That actually works. I think you start... No, he fixed that bug. There was a bug before that if you picked up the charcoal, you would start on the other side of the monsters. You just skip that part. Unfortunately, it would have been fun. Oh no, no. There's several others working on it. Let me take the controller. There's been several other people on it, but mainly like code help or help with animation or graphics or so on. We're just gonna run through the rest of it real quick so that we don't run out of time, so that we can have animation. Yeah, there is. Oh, wait. Fuck off. I definitely prefer working with Wise, but not necessarily because FMUD is bad. It's the approach of how to deal with certain issues that I very much prefer over it. I have actually completely forgotten how to complete this level. I find it easier to globally control parameters in Wise, and the hierarchy structure is easier for me to grasp. But it's not necessarily because Wise is let's say Wise is bad or Fmod is bad or anything like that. It's just I've been working with Wise so much that I've gotten kind of used to how to do it. Yeah. Kevin's game. Yeah. Yeah, this guy also kills you. That's a chicken from dinner. That just gets a good whack. Hold up. The breathing and the sound of the characters is also me. But all the laboratory sound is from my mom's lab that she used to work at. Yes. Yes, I do. I generally think that if you take implementation into account, not necessarily first, but as part of your design process, then it's way cooler in the long run. Because if I already know what I want to do with my, I have the key, right? If I already know what I want to do with let's say, I don't know, a bunch of random containers and parameters and so on. If I know that beforehand, then my design process will be different because that makes me think of the content that I'm creating in a different pattern, which means that I take layers and randomization into account before I even start creating something, because I don't need to create one sound, I need to create layers and stuff that works together. So I quite like the idea of using Wise and Fmod as part of the sound design tool, not necessarily where you design the sound, but where you put it. Come move! What? Yeah. I don't know what kind of acid he does, but no, he said it was a lucid dream. I don't know if all these characters are actually from lucid dreams, but he says that there is a link to everything that he has experienced in his real life to every object in the world. I guess that's how composers think all the time. I don't know. Yes. And now, does anyone remember what the key was supposed to look like? Was it like that, or was it the other way around? What? Oh yeah. So else we have to get past the... What? It's not in my inventory. I'm trying to make sure that the key fits the lock. Is it like that? Like it was before. Like that? Like that? Was it that? Like that. Let's try. Else, by the way, we can totally. Killed by Chuba. Do we have the key still? Is it the correct format? It is. Thank God. It's a nice way to put in. It's a nice way to put in a place to save the game. Like imagine if it had saved before the key changed. This is an actual player, I guess, from his rather large catalog of musicians for symphonic music that just sent us a bunch of recordings of him doing weird stuff in his tuba. It's pretty cool. No, I think this one is one-off. This here is the second to last level. We can run through the last level as well, and then we can start digging into what's going on. This one takes quite a while. See? The key is fucking different, boys! Oh, okay. Now we know, yeah. Now he waits and turns. No, actually I don't know. That might actually be an interesting bug. If you die now, you can skip the encounter. But I think they fixed that, because there was a bug before where when you died on the train, you would skip. You would literally spawn on the other side of the monster, so that you could literally just run into him and then stop. Like that? It's good that I have you guys to remember, because I clearly don't remember on my own. Calculated. Totally calculated. Somebody wanna take the remote, just press OK. It's one of those friendly TVs. You've been gaming for too long. Like, fuck you, what the fuck are you doing? Of course. No. Isn't there one there? No, what? I'm pretty sure it's this one. And it needs to go the other way around. God damn it. when you forget your own puzzle. Yeah. There's that one, and there's only that one. All right. Well, but that was the one from before, wasn't it? Ah, there we go. Totally forgotten where to pick up a specific object. Yeah, but those are no. I'm looking for a magnet. Yeah, but I need 2 of them. Here we have already been. Oh, there it is. Ding! Oh, wait. Yeah, and then we need to go. It's a synth. Oh, fuck, it's not. Oh, god damn it. Thanks for noticing. We did it again, boys. There we go. Fuck. God damn it. There we go. Wow. Did you just see that? Like, yeah. honestly don't remember what I made. The loop itself, you think? There we go. Yeah, so now we need a broad key with 2D side, alright. Good question is, now we need to get past that tuba guy again. And that was... No, it's just waiting. Yes, all the monsters have the same mechanic as in terms of walking back and forth, which is a waiting game. But it's also part of, I remember we discussed it quite a lot, that they're like quite long and the waiting game can be sort of annoying if you fail a lot of times, but the whole point is also that it's I was told it's part of the process of slowing down gameplay on purpose. So you actually have to wonder what's going on so that you don't want to fail. Now we just need to find the old place again, because this level gets super confusing. Where is what? So... Was it here? No. Anyone remembers? I have to go into that room. Oh, there. All right. Yes, and then over to the screw puzzle. Yeah, right. Past the screw puzzle and use the key. Now we need to get what is it? Around. I have forgotten how to get around. That's a good question. How do we get up on the ceiling of that? Mess, you seem to figure it out. Where I forgot. On how to rotate the world to the correct spot. That's not that one. Yeah, but there's a hidden place there. So. Yeah. Oh yeah, hang on. But I can't move this. Oh, there you go. Nice one, Biggie. That's also Herlev Hospital, by the way. The background noise of the morgue there. Yeah, the sound of the yeah. I went to the Herlev Hospital morgue. Yeah. Smiled very politely, like yeah. I have no business here whatsoever. Here we go. All that is primarily the sound of the Staten Island ferry in New York City docking. If you've ever tried it, the way it stops is that it sails directly into the wooden pier and then stops. That's literally how they stop it, and it's amazing. Last time we were there, like we had gone twice, and I was like, we have to take it more because I need recordings of this, and it's like 45 minutes each way. Final level of the game. You go through the lighting port. What? What's ahead? On your head, yeah. No, I'm pulling left. It would have been pretty weird. It would have actually been pretty cool if controls have been upside down. Yeah. Wow, I never thought of that. That would actually have been pretty cool. Ooh. Walks through the portal and baby cries. Thank you. Lots of people involved. And yes, they're very much from Eastern Europe. I think they both live in the States. I'm actually not sure about the brother. And obviously, the sound designer comes very far down into the list. Anyway, that is hey, that is the game. Just below the voice actor. The tiny breathing of the guy sometimes when he's dying and stuff. There's breathing of the boy, and then the list of translators is insanely long. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's just compared to any other developer skill, it's the list of translators is the longest. Anyway, that's it. Let's get into some details. Huh? Yes, thank you. But that was what was supposed to have been like all over the game, like this style. I think it would have been cool, but also now that the game is out without it, I kind of like it without. But it's also not my call. I didn't pull that decision. So we yes. He's like very classical type. So his Twitter feed is like, oh, I scored this movie, I made this video game, I now make this clarinet sonata for some place that he skips between like really weird, not weird, but very different kinds of production. It's way cool. Who's his father? Anyway, the fun stuff. If you want a beer or something, let grab one now, because that's. And I totally need one too. Ha! So, I don't know. Grab one. Yes, of course. More. Tag hele pakken. Right. So, all the streamers, that's cool. We're gonna run through some Fmod and Waveleft stuff now, and then we're gonna cut you off because then Cubase doesn't work any further. No, it was made before my time, so I have nothing to say with it. But I guess maybe economical, but also out of his development style was maybe based on maybe he had read somewhere that Unity wasn't sufficient, or what you could do with the various tools was not sufficient enough. So he decided to go with Fmod as middleware. But we'll get to that when we show it off in 5 minutes, because the way we use it, Fmod is actually like completely not unusable but unnecessary for what we did with it eventually. Like it's cool to do the fade ins and fade outs, but we straight up used it as a sampler that plays one to one samples. So if you don't have, let's say, all sorts of parameters that needs to change all the time, then fmod is, if you ask FOY, so anything else, is basically insignificant or unnecessary for the project.
Because you need to use the tools at your disposal.
Yes. Mm.
Har du arbejdet med dem før?
Mm-mm.
Det er helt nyt.
Ikke noget særligt. Kun lige sådan hurtigt tændt for det og kigget på det og altså lært alle mulige underlige ting med at sætte sådan nogle tidsmarkers og skip imellem content, som jeg aldrig nogensinde har skulle bruge i et projekt efterfølgende selv. Det er sådan lidt underligt. Så.
Så det der med, det er to helt forskellige måder og Wise arbejder på
Mm.
hensigten.
Jamen også den der med tidslinjen, som Fmod har, som Wise slet ikke har.
Det giver god mening, men når man er vant til at komme over fra Wise af, hvor events betyder...
Jeg vil bare have events. Altså hele tiden.
Jeg lavede jo en anden implementation over
Okay.
det tog mig fandme lang tid at forstå, hvordan events fungerede i Wise, fordi jeg var vant til, at events fungerede lidt ligesom, som vi gør i Fmod. Så det der med, sådan, at events lige pludselig bliver noget, hvor du kalder noget unikt fra, i stedet for, at det er der, hvor du rent faktisk laver, eller sætter dit system op.
Ja, jeg er helt enig.
Kæmpe omkostning, synes jeg.
Jamen også det der med terminologien, altså i forhold til, at så hedder det multi-instrument, og ikke random container, og sådan noget, det skal jeg også lige... Altså jeg er helt med på, hvad de gør, men det var virkelig svært, sådan multi-instrument, det er jo ikke et instrument, og det er sådan... Altså, og det ved jeg ikke. Det ved jeg ikke. Anyway. Is everybody here? Hvis nu tænder lyset, så kan det være, at... sit down again and let's continue before it gets too late. Okay, so... Sorry for not staring at you while I do this, but this here is our Fmod project. And this is the project that we would send back and forth to one another all the time, like through WeTransfer or something else. Fortunate enough, when you're only two people or one person working in the Fmod project, you just share the project, then there's no problem in terms of someone overriding someone else's work. But if you were a bigger team, then you obviously needed a solution to solve that, because else someone might get hurt if they change my material, at least. It's not that loud, but actually we can't even hear it. Anyway, these here are the whenever the old lady comes. So the thing is that we used Fmod in a very, very, very old school fashion. Like it's literally just a sample player, and Wise and Fmod and all those tools. If you don't use its capabilities in terms of how to change parameters and so on, then they're literally the most stupid sampler you can find. It plays samples from like one-to-one format, and that's it. Which can be nice if that's what you want, and that's how we used it, but that's also because we didn't necessarily have all sorts of parameters that we can send back and forth to one another. So we had all these loops. It's very subtle, but it is actually a loop. So all these folders, they're literally like just events for everything that we have, and they randomize. They randomize the trip to the local junkyard. And in my basement. Yes. Here we have the the player and the steps. There we go. This is the original 4 that we made. And it, where are the footsteps? Footsteps. There we go. Here they all are. So now they say nothing, but then we have all these parameters up here that can change. So if we have carpet, and we are walking at a certain speed, play like this. And if we're running, it's like this. And then the parameter for small room, actually, let's just do it for the big room. It's a little easier. So all of these, let's say for speed, now we just need, we need to be able to see the parameters. Here we go. Like carpet sneak. What the hell are they? Anyway, this is the speed that contains it, and then all these reverbs here, they just, there you go. This here is the carpet sneak on small, which means that this parameter literally just turns up this here carpet sound, and then the special reverb that plays after it. So if you notice that it might play version 5 of the reverb, but version 4 of the actual footsteps. They're not necessarily interlinked in between one another. That's a small room. So if we go down here and say we want the large room, so we turn up the large room, then the reverb of the large room will play. That also means that we can combine them. We didn't necessarily do that, but we could have. It would have been pretty cool. We can combine the type of step as well. So let's say we want this. This is concrete, ceramic, and carpet playing on top of one another. Yes. Yeah, and they're randomized. They're generated from the same base material, but they play at random points. And when you do it like this, you get this massive, massive multi-instrument layer thing, which is extremely annoying to work in. Not once it's done, but that meant that we had to spend a lot of time on creating this one instrument and then leave it and don't touch it. Yeah.
That's for saving processing power.
Yeah, I guess it's probably the most inefficient way of making footsteps I've ever done.
Yes.
But in terms of CPU power and expense of terms of memory and space, and I guess also voice-wise, it's not the most efficient, but it sounded great, so we wanted to keep it. But it's, I guess, if we had had a bigger game and we wanted to take that sort of tweaking and polish into account, then this would be probably one of the places where we would have to cut back. Because we can't have 4 voices playing per footstep. Well, you can, but if you have that, with guns and all sorts of other things playing at the same time, it gets a little trippy. Anyway, all of these. We made all these weird recordings just in my basement, sand just being dropped on the floor. I totally cleaned it up after. I primarily have this. Have several, but usually they're all MS recordings that have been spread out with a Sennheiser 418. My mono recordings and close-up recordings are all with this old 80, not old, an 80K huge valve microphone that can go really close and get lots of details, which is nice. Yeah, this is actually the very end of the game. So, like, as you can see, sample playback tool, which means that we could have done this in Unity as well. It would have required some scripting and so on so that we would randomize between things. But still, it made it a lot easier when you have to share a project. You can just throw things into middleware and then save the file, save the folder, and then send it back and forth. And we have this nice.
Somewhere you also have this huge library of raw sounds.
They're named weird space noise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm pretty good at naming, but they're usually named weird stone rock space noise, weird metallic space organism, this and that. I work very on stuff, so it's very very hellish sometimes to go through it, but you could actually. Because in here, these are all the recordings I made with my phone, and they are all just case slide, case 1, 2, 3. Then they're shaking my cover like breaking. This is weird, like. It's nice. But the only problem is that, as with any other Steinberg tool, they don't support 30 plugins any longer, which means that I also download this really old, ugly version of the same tool, which allows for that. It's the same company. Then I would usually have content that we put in like that, and then my favorite tool is this Kfia. And we should have some sounds in here somewhere. There are some. We basically just load any sound that we have, like this. And then when we play this one back, where's the loop? This would generally be a way that I would. Well, this is very quick, but just load RR filters that are extremely short and then made out of sound that I would like to have, and then usually compress it to death, and then do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again until you get something really weird out of it. Um, and just if you ever experiment with Kefir, it's an impulse response filter. It's supposed to be worked as a reverberation filter. Like you take everything, you measure it in a room, and then it sort of can sort of like generate that reverb for you, which means that it thinks it needs to generate reverb out of something. But if you put in blah as your impulse response, everything will say blah when it comes out on the other end. So if you generate your response filters according to if you know how it will behave, then you can sort of like generate the filter that you want to just run through it. Um, yes, this takes wave files. That's the fun part of it.
Like a fun convolution.
Yes, it's exactly the same thing. Normally, the convolution reworks would require a specific RR file, but in this one, just eats whatever you throw at it, which is nice. The only problem is that it also takes up massive CPU power. So as soon as you have a couple of these runnings, your computer will, regardless of what size computer you have, it will literally choke. Uh, and then you have to start working blindly, which is also nice. But don't yeah, add reverb, and you have a drone. It's but then you would design. I would design these filters, and then sometimes if you get weird accidents out of it, then instead of the one sound that you're working on, then you take 1,000 files and send it through, and then hopefully you get something cool out of that. Not hopefully, but if you practice or have worked with it for quite a bit, then you will start to sort of like be able to predict what kind of result will come out of something. You can also have really short RR filters that basically just tilts the waveform, like changes it and so on, which means that if you want something to sound metallic, you can just add your metallic impulse response, and so on. Which is a very nice way of working, if you ask me. But let's go back into the nicer looking but not as useful Wavelab. These were all the phone recordings. Um, mm, 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 mm. Ah, yes. Here we have let's try it over here. Here we have an RR filter, which is oh wait, it's just me breathing. So if you use this as a filter, then whatever you throw at it will sound like this, and that's just everything that comes at it like that. So if we stop this here and get rid of none, none, like this here, and the one that we load is was it number one? For the file. Let's just load this one. And then if we put in any other sound, um, the sound that you heard before, it's already used by another file. There we go. Without the filter, it's if we add the filter, which is the voice. Maybe say you can add a bunch of these, but basically you're just adding tiny breathing things to everything you have. if you reverb it again and do so on and on, you get really, really nice results. Yes. What? Oh, there we go. Just load the stereo plugin. This is the same sound, but with the breathing on top. It doesn't distort as much. So without the filter, this is yeah, the filter. So if you know how to work with it, you can sort of create your own filter to begin with, and then throw everything through it. To be honest, I quite often when I listen to cool music, like cool people who like Auteka or Noisia or someone else who does really cool stuff, maybe there's a tiny noise somewhere. Just sample that, and then don't use that as a sample on your own. But if you start to creating filters out of really weird like phases and so on, then you can get really, really weird results out of it. Especially on breathing stuff, which is primarily how all my breathing is made. Just literally breathe in a fashion that seems extremely uncomfortable or whatever, and then record normal breathing in and out, then you can get out of it. So you can sort of like have more creative freedom because nobody wants to sit and make that weird noise for 5 minutes because then I'd never threw up, but it almost happens, I swear. um, let's see here. So let's use the other wave. It's a little easier to use. But Kefir doesn't work on this 64-bit platform, which is why I use it as well, because yeah, it's rather frustrating, but that's yes, it is. I use it a lot for designing stuff. Just create long effect chains and then process in WaveLab. Um, Quite a lot actually. You can get really, really professional tools that can load special filters, but they're specifically designed to be very accurate in terms of you want to represent a certain room or something like that. What I like about this plugin is that it eats everything you throw at it, because let's say waves, they have this IR1 plus one, IR1, Martin. Oh, but they have this really, really expensive impulse response filter plugin. But the problem is that you have to feed it specially converted already impulse response files. And if you convert it wrongfully, or it simply thinks this is not an impulse response, then it will not work. Which means that you buy this really expensive tool and it's trying to tell you you can't do this. And I don't like tools that tells me what I can and cannot can. Elseverb? I should look into that. Reverberate. Cool. Let's. It also eats everything. That's nice. We don't mention Logic here. No, I don't use Logic, but I like Logic. So my old days at the conservatory, where I spent 5 years making drones like this. This is literally the result of reverb on reverb and impulse response and impulse response, and then just in and out stuff. So it actually became super useful. This also has a reversed delay on it and other tools. I don't have them installed, but I use something called GRM tools, where you can customize delays and reverbs and fade in and out between them. And eventually you get sounds like these out of it, which means that almost every game I make, they have this weird sonic soundscape like this because it's not necessarily easy to do, but it's something that quite quickly comes out of whatever I do. Yeah, I guess. Let's see if we have some. Yes. The school that we did not break into and recorded stuff from. We recorded a lot of stuff with MS microphones and with in the 192 kilohertz sampling rate. The cool thing about that is that almost no microphone can read that, but if you distort the microphone, you get all sorts of weird results out of it, like this, because this sound is inaudible to the human ear before we pitched it down. This is like probably I don't know 80 hertz that was pitched down to what we hear, but it's literally this is not the sound itself. This is the distortion that the microphone generates for us that we then pitch down. This is a ball thrown at a basketball hoop in an empty gym, and this sound is I like it. It's one of my favorites. And then I think this is also just the weather outside, but recorded extremely loud, where we purposely distort the recorder, and then everything that's in the top of the recording, which is the distortion signal that the microphone cannot handle. This is whenever you pitch that down. I usually try to cut out the parts that are audible and then keep the inaudible parts before I pitch it down, so that you don't get something that's super low and muddy at the same time. No, it's just the microphone that produced. It's supposed to only record up to 20k, which means that sometimes you get weird stuff on top, but it's nothing fancy usually. But if you on purpose distort the microphone, then these microphones produce unexpected results.
Oh, yeah, that's more like you're actually trying to limit limiting the signal instead of having it like all over.
No, because usually the top frequencies are non-distorted because they're just digital noise. But yes, else you should of course do that. We have. Sorry for the loudness. This is my microwave. The frequencies that came out of the microwave because it's distorting the microphone and causing interference. And here we go. Usually, if we just pitch it down. I do not want to live in a house with a microwave that does that outside of its natural habitat. But it's, as a friend of mine said, it's like there's another world inside your microwave. And this, by the way, is all the insects heard in Hitman Season 1. They are made out of that microwave noise that we have. And last but not least, let's try. No, not that one. But yeah, oh wait. Here is the original MS recording of that of the sound you heard before. And it's just me throwing a wooden ball at a basketball hoop. These are actually pretty cool by themselves. And the same sound. Same sound. Yeah, same sound, same base material. And just this is now a 12-minute file out of a sample that's 1 second long, just with lots of effects on it. I think it took about 3 hours to render, but that's beside the point. Can I have one. This is also the microwave. Horror movie, perhaps. This is say. You asked about naming a file. Horror movie, perhaps. Yeah, that's about. Yeah, a little bit. And this is also very nice. This is also the sound of the ball. Just put through various filters and RR filters, like an RR filter of some drum and bass noise that I found it really cool, and just generate this out of it. This like this I could put on and listen to at home. I like these really deepy things. Yeah. Apart from that, we have the original sound of whatever. They are actually different depending on if it's clockwise or anti-clockwise. I would have liked them to have been different. And there are all these special versions with Wood Creek. Let's just add it on top, depending on what material the world is rotating around. And what more? Anyway. Yeah, but they're all high passed, very low end controlled. So we don't have any low end that like runs freely. So I think everything below 50 hertz is not there. It's very low end controlled, and it's very much like I would produce a techno track where I would want bass to be loud but non-distorting, and probably 20 hertz, like a controlled drone of or sine wave of 20 hertz as the bass of whatever I want. If I need sub, very very well controlled like that. Anyway, we're gonna cut the stream so that we can look into Cubase.